name is Sue Hughes, and I'm here today with my dear friend and colleague Emma Watson from Western Australia. A very warm greeting to you, Emma, today.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you so much. We've got a nice warm day over here. I don't know what it's like over there, but
It's cold and dark, but we're living with
it's
it.
bright and sunny here.
Yes, for those of you that don't know, I am from the UK. Emma is from Australia. And Emma and I are co-presenters and co-producers of a new program, Light Life Living, which you can learn about from our new website, which is coming out probably the end of next week, at least by the end of February, lightlifeliving.com. So Emma, I'm really interested to hear about your journey with food, how you related to food and how you relate to food now. Would you be happy to tell us a bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. Gosh, it takes us way back, Sue. It started for me when I was in my very early teenage years, so around sort of 12, 13. And what started at that time was a pattern of using food not just as fuel and for physical hunger, but to basically soothe and comfort emotions. And once that pattern started, it really built and became very strong throughout my teenage years and then my early 20s, all the way through to my mid 20s. And over this time, my weight was getting higher and higher, and I felt more and more out of control with food.
Okay. And so you say it started in your early teens. How did you know? How did you get that awareness? How did you know?
Well, the physicality changed. I started to put on weight, and people started to notice that. But I noticed that even at that young age that my eating was changing and that something wasn't quite right. I didn't know what to do about it or how to change it, but I knew something wasn't quite right. And my way of trying to deal with that as a teenager was, of course, to do diets with friends and diets out of library books and magazines and all sorts of things. And they certainly didn't give me any long-term solutions, but that was my kind of way of trying to exercise control over it.
And so did you have other friends that were on the same sort of journey as you?
I had one friend actually, and in a way, it was kind of a good and bad thing. She kind of got me into my first diet book, which was from the library. She showed me where it was, and that was the beginning of my very first diet. So well-intentioned, but gosh, that industry didn't do me any favors in that I never managed to lose a significant amount of weight and keep it off for any meaningful period of time.
It sounds as though you sort of crossed into a tribe, a dieting tribe.
I did. So that's exactly what happened.
But
and I became really good at it. I became a bit of a specialist. I went into all sorts of slimming clubs and diets, and any bandwagon that came and was released, I would jump on it.
So did none of these solutions work?
Look, I went through an Atkins phase, or it was some version of that, so kind of the low carb movement, and that worked for a few months, but I couldn't sustain it, and the emotion or triggers ended up, overpowering the willpower of sticking to whatever I was eating on that.
So it's interesting you're saying that you really do believe that this is an emotional thing behind it all.
Oh, look, absolutely. And I think if we could get in a time machine and go back and interview that Emma from the early 2000s, I had some recognition of that. I knew that was partially to do with it, but I think I would have estimated it at something like 10% of my issue. Look, with the wisdom of retrospect, it was 100% of my issue.
Okay.
I was fairly well educated about food. I knew that, eating junk and lots of biscuits and sugary things aren't good for you. I knew that. And yet I felt myself compelled to eat them if they were in the house or near me.
So what was that felt sense when you felt so drawn towards these foods?
Look, it's hard to describe. There was almost a magnetic pull from them, and a feeling of very much powerlessness on my part, and then this urgency to get them in as quickly as possible. The soothing feeling never really lasted, and often I would feel very guilty afterwards, and I would know that what I had done to my body was not in its best interest, but at the time I just couldn't stop it.
Mm. Mm. So What changed and when did it change?
So in around 2003, I changed jobs, and there were some colleagues who were into this thing called tapping that I knew nothing about. And they gave me a manual on it, and I sort of looked at it. And I heard somewhere that you could use it for weight issues and for issues with food. And I thought, oh, here's my next bandwagon. And I jumped on it with some enthusiasm, expecting not the results that I've got, but expecting, oh, it might give me some short-term relief. Little did I know how life-changing that would turn out to be. But that's how I got into it. And it's been the tapping that's changed everything for me.
Okay, so how have things changed now? How would you describe your relationship with food now?
Oh gosh, again, it's difficult to put into words because it is so different. I feel like it's almost in a different solar system. It's that far apart from where it was. Really, it's been now about 14 years that I have been either completely free or mostly free of these issues, and my weight has been stable, and I have been really healthy for that time. And it's not something I have to battle with anymore. It's not something I have to think about. I'm not constantly having to gauge my weight to make sure I'm not putting on weight, or I'm not constantly on the scales checking where I'm at, because they were real obsessive type behaviors for me.
Mm. Oh, just going back again, why did you think you needed to be something different from who you were? What were
Oh,
the what were the pressures?
oh gosh, I think that I had internalized a lot of external pressure that perhaps hadn't been it hadn't been intended in the way it came across in my brain. I think that a lot of things had been done in a very well-meaning way, and somehow the message had got skewed in there, and I'd taken it as not being good enough and being criticized, and that sort of morphed into really, I was riddled with self-hatred for my body. I tended to focus it on my body, but really it was bigger than that. I really was uncomfortable in my own skin in every sense.
Mm, mm. That sounds a horrible place to be.
It was a very difficult place to be. And it even came out in things like in the mornings, I would weigh myself, and then that would sort of set the tone for my day. And, it was rare that I was happy with the numbers. So that tended to start the day off badly. And then I would get dressed for the day and not feel comfortable in what I was wearing. And I would get changed multiple times. I'd have these outfits kind of scattered over the bedroom and never feel comfortable in what I was wearing because I wasn't comfortable with myself.
You must have been getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning for your ritual.
I did have to get up earlier. I will be honest about that. I did. And then I had to clean up the clothes that I'd scattered everywhere.
Oh, dear, what a time waster it must have felt.
Oh, it was. And look, a huge energy waster too. The amount of time I put into monitoring every number on the scale, and then dreaming up spreadsheets and the next thing I was going to launch myself into, and what days I was going to go to the gym for the rest of my life. The amount of time and effort and money I put into that. It's
Yeah,
extraordinary.
yeah, it sounds exhausting.
It was exhausting.
Yeah.
It
And
was.
so explain to me how things are different for you today.
Look, it really is. I mean, obviously, it's something I'm passionate about in my work, helping people with these issues. But for me, very rarely does it come up as an issue anymore. And if it does, it really has to be something huge. And it's been a long time now since even that's happened. My body is, in a really good place health wise and weight wise. And it's not something I have to struggle to keep it at that point anymore. It just does that.
Mm, that sounds amazing. I'm sure for some people that are watching this, it almost sounds too good to be true.
Look, had I not lived it myself, I don't think I'd believe it. It's been such a huge change and such a sustainable one. It's really been a long time now. We're not talking weeks and months. We're talking years and years.
Mm. So you said about it being 100% emotional. So how does it feel to have that shifted?
Oh, a liberation. And I really feel like my energy and concentration can go back to some of the things that I wanted it to go back to, things that were important to me in my work and in my personal life. You know, I was almost seeing everything through like a filter of food and weight. It was like right up in front of me, and everything else was sort of a distant second.
Yes, I understand that
You can relate to
completely.
that. And
Yeah,
also too, Sue, I was happy to do any sort of weight loss program, no matter if it compromised my health. I didn't care. As long as I saw some results on the scales, who cares if this is damaging my health, was my attitude. And I look
that
back
sounds
on
like
that.
a really important point, that what
Yes.
we do to our bodies is not related to health at all.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Mm.
And what I think in retrospect, it was quite destructive to my health to be engaging in some of the things I was engaging in, you know, periods of starvation and all sorts of weird and wacky things I dreamt up to help me lose weight.
Yes. Well, it sounds as though, I don't want to make assumptions, but but now you've come from that place of self-hatred through a sort of self-acceptance, and dare I say it, to self-care
Yes.
and self-love.
Yes, absolutely. And that is the journey it took. It took kind of going to that acceptance state to then be able to move into the caring and self-love. And I
Mm.
really had no concept of that when I was younger. I'd hear sentiments of people saying, take care of yourself and love yourself. And I liked those sentiments, but I had no idea how to do that in a practical sense. No clue.
Sure. Oh, Emma, it's been so lovely to talk to you. Um, we need to finish now, but could you just remind people about how they can get in contact with us if their interest has been piqued in any way by this chat?
Sure. So probably the easiest thing to do these days is to follow us on social media. So our Instagram page, Light L Living, is up and running. Our Facebook is about to launch. You can hop on our website that's about to go live in the next couple of weeks, lightlifeliving.com. And you're welcome to email us, and we'll make sure that those contacts are in the notes for this video. So please reach out with any questions for me personally, and I think, Sue, you'd feel the same. We're
Yeah.
happy to share our stories and tell you about the program. Thank you so much, Sue, for taking the time today.
Well, thank you, Emma, and I look forward to chatting again soon.
Excellent. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.